Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. I know it's so weird. My camera's not on, and Hillis is like the only. I have to say, Hillis, I hate when I do shows and the other person's camera's off, and I'm just staring into the camera by myself. So I have put you, my dear friend, in a position that I don't like. But here we are. My camera's.
I'm used to the spotlight. Yay!
Jazz hands. My camera's acting up, you guys. It's been a wild day, and so I text Phil. So I was like, my camera's acting up, so I'm just going to turn it off. And because you are the star of the show anyway, so and so it doesn't matter, right? I know that we are simulcasting through multiple platforms today. Unfortunately, sometimes StreamYard only allows me to see YouTube. So if you are watching from Substack or Rumble and you ask a question and we don't answer it, it's not intentional. I just want to put that disclaimer out. I can't actually see it, but I know we get a lot of traffic over on Rumble. So anyway, so if you are asking from Rumble, I am watching right now from Rumble as well to see if I catch anything. But if somebody doesn't respond to your question, then hop on over to YouTube, to either my channel or Hillis's channel, and pop the question in there. Rumble's great, but they need to get their asses together because there's some stuff about Rumble where it's a little bit janky compared to YouTube. So come on, Rumble, step it up.
Well, YouTube has been around since literally 2004, and the reason for that is because of Miss Janet Jackson.
Sorry, Miss Jackson, I am for real. Did she started it?
No. Well, technically, yes. Because of what happened that year at the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
Everyone missed, and this is the quick summary of that. So since a lot of people missed what happened at the 2004 Super Bowl, the creators created YouTube so people could see it.
So it started as a naughty website then, basically, because of what if you're young and watching and you don't know what happened at that Super Bowl. It's actually kind of benign now compared to 2026.
Yeah, but I mean, Little Kim was out with one year at the Grammys with pasties on. I mean, like, come on.
It's basically what it was. But yeah, I remember that. I actually do remember that Super Bowl. I can't believe it's been 22 years since that happened. But here we are. Time flies, right?
Exactly.
So we'll speak of time and remembering, Hillis, we're going to focus because you've got something really, really big coming up, don't you?
I do. And this, one of my favorite things to do this weekend happens to be on the Lionsgate portal. And I have something in my eye where I am doing a 2-hour event to where I am going to be assisting people to help them, guide them through the process of understanding trauma, what trauma is, and to clear some of that trauma. And the name of this event is From Trauma to Treasure. If you guys go to my social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you guys are, you guys get a glimpse into my story and how I started my work. I'm not doing this work just because for the sake of doing it. I do this work because it happened to me too. I was traumatized, many ways.
Yeah.
And so with understanding of trauma and the space of remembrance and understanding that each event, each catalytic event, each traumatizing event assists us in remembering who we are, what we do, and how our lives are impacted by that. Whether it's, some people feel it's negative, but it's more so for the positive because we begin to take action and become responsible for our own life.
Well, let's focus on that a little bit because I don't think people truly understand how important this is. We were chatting offline. You and I are both part of this world of disclosure, of freedom, of truth, or of being awake to the matrix. Of course, for YouTube, we have to be careful the words we say. And I don't think people realize, first of all, how complicated the nervous system is, and how
Oh,
some
very.
we're living in trauma and we don't even realize it because our body adapts and our mind adapts to it. And second of all, we know it's subconscious responses. That what good is it, Hillis, if we walk into a brand new world that's free of the darkness, where the good is in control again, but we're all still traumatized? What's going to happen?
Well, we'll still be in that traumatized state.
Right.
We'll be in that space. And what I want people to understand, which a lot of people, a lot of my peers are not talking about, which kind of surprises me, because as a collective, we're moving between higher third density and lower fourth density. But primarily, we are in fourth density. And people say, "Oh, are we in fifth 5D? Are we in fifth density yet?" The answer is no. Collectively, no. Individually, yes, and higher. And the reason for that is because fourth density is this way station. It's this space of the in between, the illusion that has been manifested, and the space of unconditional love. And mind you, when we get to fifth density, it's not kumbaya as of yet. We have still yet work to do in that space. But in fourth density, it is the space of understanding what trauma is, understanding what your fears are, understanding how you were hurt, understanding how you were abused, understanding how you were the victim, understanding how you were the martyr, the hero, all these things. And then you begin to allow yourself to open up and be receptive to strip all of that away. Strip away all these identities, strip away all these layers of self that has been created to keep you safe in this traumatic space. Because that's what feeling safe is. We built up all these layers, we built up all this protection, so that way nothing can hurt us because I'm in my cocoon and I feel safe here. So when we move into a new paradigm, a new shift, a new energetic space, container, collective, and we still have this old emotional baggage of trauma, we are going to automatically revert mentally and maybe even emotionally back to that safe space. And this is just conditioning. This is just normal conditioning that we all have experienced. We always go back to what's familiar
Yeah.
rather than moving forward into something that feels good or exciting.
The devil we know is better than the devil we don't know. I love that saying. And it goes back to, basis, like my basis in spending years in India studying traditional yoga. It goes back to this whole Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras. His whole basis is, why does man suffer? Like, why do we suffer? What's the human condition? And so he basically divides up our reality into three different sections. You've got Prakriti, Purusha, and Ishvara. Ishvara would be like God or higher, whatever you want to call higher consciousness.
Mhm.
And Prakriti is the Sanskrit word for nature or the matrix. And then Purusha is the Sanskrit word for like the soul. And he says, Patanjali says that man suffers because who man thinks he is not who he is. It's that massive cognitive dissonance, right? Like, I know my mortal body is destined to die. That's just nature. Nature has a beginning, a middle, and end. But yet I think I'm immortal, which you are immortal, but it's the soul. And so what I'm getting at, this morning, Paul and I spoke about metacognition, which is the scientific word for sakshi, which is a
Hmm.
Sanskrit word for sakshi, which is the witness, the higher consciousness of the witness. And when we're programmed, when we have these, and I know I have high anxiety, I have CPTSD, all that stuff. I've been through major trauma therapy. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Sometimes we do things we don't even realize we're doing because our body and our nervous system is survival mode. But if we can learn how to heal that and observe it from that metacognition or that sakshi, being the
Mhm.
witness of that, we can move past it. Because I want to ask our friends watching Hillis something that might trigger them, but it needs to be said. Why do y'all think the cabal, for lack of a better word, has been able to be so powerful? Because we've allowed it. Our trauma has allowed it.
Yeah, it's in this space to keep you safe. And just want to share this from my personal experience. Back in 2008, when, lost my job, relationship, my whole life began to change.
Yeah.
And this is when, my aunt has gone through maybe her second gastric bypass surgery, and this is when gastric bypass was still new. So there was complications. So she had to go back, have surgery, clear the complications. And she was in good health. And at the time, my aunt's health was up and down because of the surgeries. And so we had a period of where she had really good health. And so we would go on these rendezvous, as we would call them. Sometimes we would go out to a late lunch or early dinner. Sometimes that would also encompass us going for a Costco run, all these things, all these things. And so then one day we are on our way back to my space, to my apartment, and we stopped at Cold Stone Creamery. And I got my favorite mix of, uh, it was oat flavored ice cream with coconut chips, white chocolate chips, and caramel. You talk about so mind you, it's been like almost 20 years, 18 years, and I still remember that blend.
That's
um,
how good it was.
yeah, that's how good it was. And then my aunt, when we got back into my apartment and I started eating the ice cream, my aunt looked at me and she says, Hillis, do you think you're depressed? And I'm like, no, I don't know. Why would you ask? Because she's been there. She knew what to look for, and I didn't, because this was my first go around at this,
Right. Right. Yeah.
losing everything. And so she said that, and it opened me up to more possibility of what happened. Am I ignoring my life? Am I ignoring what happened? Hell yeah. I mean, relationship, business, job, all at the same time. I mean, who wouldn't be in a state of shock or depressed?
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
disassociating. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, and even now, where certain situations arise, I'm not perfect. There's new situations, new realizations. There's this space of disassociation, and that's only because I have to allow myself to adjust and acclimate to the new frequencies. And that is okay. Let me go. And my form of disassociation is watching the comedy. I'm like, okay, let me
Yeah.
disconnect for a little while, and then revisit this. And so this is what's really, really in that space. But after I got into my path, after I really started developing and really understanding my purpose and my path, and mind you, my work as a psychic medium, my work as a Lemurian healer, it didn't come all at once. This was a process. And in my process, people have always asked me, like, well, Hillis, what kind of clients do you want? What kind of people do you want to work with? And I've never asked for any specific kind of people. People
Right.
just started showing up. And I was like, I'm just going to allow myself to be of service to whoever shows up. That's always been me. It's like, whoever needs help, I'm here for them. And so I started to begin to see a pattern of a specific type of person that would show up. And there was always women from ages 25 to 70. I know that's a wide age range, but that was it. And then they were all sexually assaulted. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I don't know how many years it was that I was into this, but and mind you, when I do this work, I'm focusing on bringing in the energy that to support them, to guide them, to nurture them. I seldom get visions, but there was this one client, one session. Um, I always get emotional with this story. It touches me so dear. Um, where I got a vision, and the vision was my client sitting at this round table, big enough for 100 souls to sit around this round table. And she's going around giving people these assignments of what roles they're going to play in her life. And they finally get to the far end of the table and says, "You're going to be the one to hurt me." And the soul replied, "I can't do that. I love you." It's like, "You're going to be the one to hurt me." Like, I can't hurt you. It's not who I am. It's not in my nature. And this went on a few times. And they replied again. Well, she spoke again. It's like, you have to hurt me so I can remember. And the soul replied, know that I do this in love so you can remember who you are. And that moment changed everything for me.
Yeah.
Changed how I approached my work, changed how I allowed myself to be of service for those who showed up to me. It just changed everything because when you know from visual and emotional experience, vibrational experience, that everything begins and ends in love, it changes everything when you begin to live in that way and fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in this collective space of not knowing what to do or how things are going to go and all this upheaval. And that's because it's time to let all that shit go. Just be done with it.
Right.
And to this day, my that's what I build my practice on, is knowing that everything begins and ends in love. It's in that space of a reciprocity and openness and honest and awareness, and people having courage to connect and say, I'm ready to change my life. Can you help? Come on down. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's that's a big concept in like yoga as well with I think in the Western world, and I've said this so many times on my shows, and I still don't think people are understanding what I'm saying because we have been conditioned to believe that karma is something negative, and it's not. It's not. In the Eastern
No.
philosophy, where this comes from, karma just means action. That's all it means. It's neither positive or negative. And so we see that as lessons to learn. So when someone says
Yep.
that's my karma, they're not saying they're being punished.
No.
It's their lesson to learn. And we have to start there's power there. And I think that is this victim mentality is something that I see it's so pervasive now, more so than when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
And it's okay. Like, yeah, there are victims in the world of crimes. Justice needs to be served. That we're talking about with the Matrix. But as far as your own walk in spirituality, it goes back. I was assaulted, and when I was younger, my uterus even fell out as a child. And that the biggest trauma for me did not come from the actual act. It came from my parents sweeping it under the rug and not
Mm.
doing anything. And that has caused a lifetime of me not valuing myself, of working too hard, of doing too much for other people, not having good boundaries. Because in that moment when I needed protecting, the people who were supposed to protect me didn't want to didn't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's very common in
Yeah,
this
very common.
reality. Where especially with children, it's like, oh no, that's just so and so. It's like, no, this really happened. I mean, this is very common, especially with the people that I work with. I
Yeah,
mean, the
it's
people that are
very
supposed to protect them, they don't see it as traumatizing. And just as an example of how things go unnoticed, or how we normalized our trauma, because that's essentially what we've done.
yeah,
And this, in the late 20th and early, well, from the late 20th century till now, we've normalized trauma.
yeah,
We've normalized it to a degree to where, oh, birth is normal. And so, when the child is born, that's trauma because you have this soul entering into this body
right.
and entering into this world. And yet, when women have C-sections, you take you're inflicting trauma on the mother.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yet there's also this space of, and I forget what it's called, but if the child is not birthed through the birth canal, it creates something else, and I can't remember what that is. But when the child is born through the birth canal, it creates this layer on the skin, and then you're then, as this baby, this soul in this new reality. So when you were just in another space, and keep in mind, everyone, that the soul does not enter the body until the last trimester, or
Right.
sometimes even after the baby has been born in some moments. And those are for more experienced souls. Like, I don't want to hang out in the womb for
I
like
don't
three
want to
months.
sit in that jelly bowl for 9 months.
Right. It's like I don't want. I was like, I'll go down when it's time. Oh, it's time. She's ready to give birth to me now. Okay. Uh,
Get the
but it's
body
in the
cleaned up first, get it bathed, and then I'll hop on in.
yeah, exactly. And so I say all of this to give everyone the variation, because we try to minimize
Yeah.
our trauma. We try to normalize everything that occurred, because and just think. I mean, this is interesting. Now you have me thinking about it, because when you and I were growing up, we didn't have social media, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, I was traumatized, just from a bully, growing up as well. I had a bully on my block when I was like 9 years old, and one day I just had enough. I'm like, this is enough, and so he came down. He was like a big kid, probably, and 9 years old. He had to be easily about 200 pounds.
Wow.
He
Wow.
had to be easily about almost 200 pounds as a 9-year-old kid. And him and the other little kid was also a fat kid. He was probably on his way to 200 pounds. Mind you, I was probably about I was probably less than 100 pounds, or about
Yep.
100 pounds as a 9-year-old kid. And one day I just had enough, and I just beat his ass in front of my mom's house. And my mom came out running and had to pull me off of him. And then like 2, 3 days later, he wanted to be my best friend. I'm like, no, we're not going to be friends after you teased me, bullied me, made fun of me, all this stuff. I mean, we, and then now today we have people on cell phone cameras, videos recording
Yep.
people in fights, recording all this trauma, recording all of this stuff. So this is how we've normalized it. We've normalized it in reality TV with the show Cops. With all these different reality shows. I mean, we desire this so we don't have to deal with our own shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes I've even noticed, Hillis, and I'm in the South, and I've just even noticed when I was growing up, there was a protocol, just of the known protocol, like of manners, that you were polite to people, that you said yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and that and it's so funny because you don't really see that. People are getting nasty now just out in public. But there's one grocery store I love going to in Atlanta, and I don't mean anything by saying this, but it's my favorite place because all the people who work there are women in their like 70s, black Southern women in their 70s. And they're the sweetest women. It's a Publix. You go into, they're like, "Hey, sugar, how's your day? Darling, how you?" I just love it because it's
You
old.
know what? I can see your face while you're saying that. That's
Hey,
the funny thing
sugar.
about it.
Hey, sugar. And it makes me so happy because they're old school Southern. Listen, and Southern black mamas and Southern white mamas are very similar in the way that they are and the way they raise their children. And
Yep.
so that old school, just Southern way of living, still that one place where it's still it just brings humanity back, just to like be
Yeah.
kind to someone across the cash register. And I think reality, and I love, listen, I that's how I disassociate, as I watch reality TV. But that has caused a lot of chaos because it's about what's reality TV, but it's about problem, reaction, solution, you
Yeah.
know. And so it causes a lot of fight. There's a lot of fighting, which I never really fought with my friends like that. It is programming us to be at this lower level. And Hillis, one thing too, I think, because you work with trauma, and I think you're doing such a beautiful job saying that we all have trauma, whether we know it or not. And I'll just explain it to you guys, if you just to understand like what Hillis, the subtlety of how this trauma happens. So I just said, like, in my childhood, my uterus fell out and no one did anything, and it psychologically put me in a place of not having any boundaries. It put me in a freeze and fawn response instead of a fight or flight. And I now, as an adult, I in my 40s realized that children who are in that situation, not necessarily that what I went through, but where they're not, boundaries aren't protected by their adults,
Hmm.
they go into a room. So I could be with Hillis and we could be going into like a party somewhere, somebody's house party. What I will do without even subconsciously realizing it is I will scan the room and I will find the person that is the most threatening, and I will go to that whose energy is the most threatening. I will go to that person and I will try to fawn that person, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a person who had healthy boundaries as a child won't do that. They will subconsciously scan the room. They'll trigger, they'll pinpoint in on the person whose energy seems the most dangerous, and they will block that person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I think a lot of us do that. We start to fawn and
Yeah.
try to manage the problem because we don't want to deal with it. And we don't even realize we're doing it, do we, Hillis?
No, and that's exactly it. Because the thing that happens is, and what I realized in my practice, is that when there are children who have been sexually abused, had any form of molestation, to some degree, whether if it was penetration or not, it's just the conditioning. It's just the way, the grooming of that, if you will. And when you have that, and then because as children, we are in the space of understanding who we are. We're soaking everything in. We're taking everything in. We are creating these relationships with our parents and the people that are around our parents. We're creating this space. We're filling out the world. Okay. And so by the time we get to our adolescence, we're in the space of self-development and self-identity. So as children, self-development, adolescent self-identity. So we have associated with what happened as children with to our adolescence. So there's this link. So we feel safe around someone who may touch us inappropriately,
Right.
but it may be inappropriately for others, but it's okay for us because this is what we feel. This is what we've heard. And with the clients that I've worked with, I've heard stories of people saying, "Well, I started having sex at 11 years old, or 14 years old, or 15 years old because I felt safe with this person. But now I realize it wasn't safe. It was my natural response to that situation because of what happened to me when I was 7."
Right.
And
You're
so
playing
we
out that programming.
exactly, and that's exactly what it is, because you're in this space of like, okay, I get it, I understand that this is what's happening, this is what has occurred. And so in the space of the developmental mind of adolescent, and keep in mind, the human brain is not fully developed until age 25. So
Right.
we are making choices and the decisions on lack of development, but yet also with the lack of safety or boundaries because of things that has occurred. And then when you said earlier, and even with the clients that I work with, when we try to seek help and get that protection, it's just washed away or swept under the rug. It's
Right.
ignored because it's like, well, how can you experience that? What are you talking about? And so it's one of these things, especially in Black culture, to where if that happens, it's the one thing that's not spoken of.
Oh, same in white.
Everyone knows it,
Yeah,
they
same
just
in
don't
white
speak
culture.
about it.
Same when I grew. Yeah, it would have been more true. The way I realize now as an adult, and I don't think my parents did this intentionally. It was an issue that they didn't want to deal with because it was painful for them to deal with, and so in that
Yeah.
moment, they swept it under the rug. And I think from their old school, their baby boomers, from their old school parenting, they felt like it would just that would just work itself out. And and you're so right, we are programmed. It's funny, Hillis, I was watching, I love history, you guys know I love history because it's gossip, right? History ain't nothing but gossip. And I was listening to this guy speak about, speaking of trauma, some of the wives of King Henry VI, who, chopped off two of their heads.
Mhm.
And the first one, Anne Boleyn, he said something, and I agreed with him, and I've always thought this. And I have a point with this guy. So I always say, "Oh, Anne Boleyn." The narrative is that Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII it was just the passionate love of all ages. And after I went through trauma therapy, I'm like, no, it wasn't. That was a traumatic relationship. We are, even in relationships, Hillis, we are programmed to want to look for the drama, look for the passion, the intensity,
Yeah.
fighting. And when I went through my trauma therapy, that's when I realized that when we have that feeling in our stomach of like push pull and all that kind of stuff, that's your nervous system telling you to run. That's not
Yeah.
love. And
Yeah.
that real love is actually kind of boring and not like that.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it, we've been programmed as a culture to have
Yeah.
that. I mean, it all started with with Helen of Troy, that love story.
Yeah.
Then it
Oh,
spilled over
absolutely.
into Romeo and Juliet. I mean, come on, we've been programmed our whole lives that every relationship has to have some sort of drama,
And
whether
to
if
be
it's romantic or platonic. And it's in that space that when we have these, dynamics, family, friends, whatever, that there has to be this push pull, drama, trauma, all of it, all load up into one because with the trauma, it also blocks certain brain receptors. It lowers the dopamine and it heightens the cortisol. So when
yeah,
you have more cortisol in the brain, it creates these automatic trigger responses, which is why the nervous system is fight, flight, or freeze. So
yeah.
when we begin to understand the chemical makeup, when we begin to understand our own biological chemistry, of why things happen the way that they do or why we're drawn to this or that, it's because of how we identify with certain situations.
Right. And once you understand, that's that metacognition, the shakshi, being able to witness, thinking about the thinking and seeing why you're doing certain things that you are doing. And
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet should be a cautionary tale. And
Yeah. And
it's
Helen of Troy, come on. And
that's
then
cautionary tale.
Cleopatra,
There
come
should
on.
never be a war fought about your relationship. I mean, we always laugh that Romeo and Juliet were just teenagers doing what teenagers do.
Right?
but uh but like Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, your love affair should not end with you getting your head chopped off. That's not love. But we've been
No.
taught that it is, that drama, that betrayal, that jealousy, that infidelity coming back together, and then when I went to trauma therapy, because I had the propensity as well myself of dating like malignant narcissist. And I always like the bad boy, but you can date a bad boy who isn't a malignant narcissist. It took me until my early 30s to figure that one out. And it wasn't until I went through trauma therapy that I realized that I was replaying something from my childhood. Like what trauma
Yeah.
does sometimes is it replays things so that you can figure. It's almost like you were talking about the childbirth, Hillis, and when a baby is not born vaginally, for the mother specifically, I don't know about the what goes on the skin, but I know for the mother, it doesn't allow her body to finish the
Oh
labor
yeah.
delivery. And I'm not, listen, if you had to have a cesarean section or you or your baby were going to die, great, I'm glad. But what happens sometimes, and they don't tell women, is if they haven't had a full on delivery, is that their body can still go into labor. And sometimes, like they could be 20 years later doing on a jog, and all of a sudden it could trigger the labor to finish. Like I'm trained in this because this can happen in yoga to
Wow.
deal with this if it were to happen. And so I
Well, it's good to know if I know anyone that happens, I know who to send them to.
Right. But you just have to let them finish it. Like you have to let the cramps finish because your body is finally. But think about that. Think about, let's say, like Hillis, a woman had a cesarean section 20 years ago. And her body never, and thank God her baby's healthy. She's somewhat healthy. But all of a sudden, 20 years later, she's in a yoga class and the contractions start again. And finally, the process is finished. Can you imagine
Wow.
at that moment how much chemical release, how much traumatic release and tension will leave the body because finally the process was finished?
No, but what I can tell you is probably about 6 months before my grandmother died, I had a premonition of her passing. But what was interesting is that they put my grandmother on some sort of medication because my grandmother had a stroke probably like in her 60s, I think. And she was like in her 80s when she made her transition. And what was shocking was that the medicine gave my grandmother her period back. And I'm like, what?
Oh, that's interesting. I've actually heard that happening a few times.
And I'm like, that's just insane. And so the things that we put our bodies through, and this is what people don't understand about trauma. It- Trauma lives, I have to sit up for this one to go through this explanation because it's intricate. So when what we know about trauma, that if because trauma is one of the lower vibrating energies, okay, but it's also connected to the higher densities. And so when we experience trauma at the physical level, it lives in the body, it lives in the cell. The body holds that memory. And this is why we are either relaxed or tense in certain situations.
Yeah.
Okay. And depending on the trauma, and since I'm familiar with sexual abuse, and sometimes this has caused many things in the sacral and root chakra. This has caused women to have miscarriages when they weren't intended. It has caused their vaginal and uteral discomfort. It has caused many things because of this thing that happened to them as children and adolescents. But that's just the physical part. And the energy, as I just mentioned, is in the sacral and root chakra, and that space there as well. Not to mention how it affects the nervous system and meridian system. It
Yep.
affects the spaces, it creates this blockage so where energy doesn't flow properly. And so, and this I know from experience, when the meridians aren't flowing properly, you get to have twitches or spasms in certain joints and part of the body. Sometimes this can cause twitching in the thighs, twitching in the gut, twitching in the vaginal area, and that's all spasm unintentional. That's because the body is trying to release something that it's unable to. It's been trying to release for years, and then from there out, you go out into your auric field, which is 7 layers. So you have 7 layers of this trauma yet to still go through. And then after you go through these 7 layers of this energetic density, you still have to deal with it at a soul level, which is why I work with people at a soul level. Because if we work at a soul, the soul is the mirror to the body,
Yeah.
and whatever reflects that is in that space. And so you just have this energetic clearing of what needs to be free, because it's all a system, and
Yep.
it's divinely created to just be as it is meant to be. Can you imagine walking around with full spectrum eyesight? We wouldn't be able to see any damn thing. We'll be so blind.
Oh, I got it's kind of off subject. So I have blue eyes, and I just saw a maybe that's a trauma too, to have light eyes, because I just saw a picture that actually showed what people with brown eyes see when they're like outside in the sun.
Hmm.
It's different with what
You have to send that to me.
I'll have to find it. It's blue-eyed people like myself, and I was like, no. When they showed it, what blue-eyed people see, I'm like, yeah, no, that is what I see. It's so bright. It everything is like yellow.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's interesting,
yeah,
because when I do plant medicine, when I have my personal plant medicine journeys, mushroom journeys, whatever,
yeah.
things are much brighter. But I would be interested to see, because
I'll have to find it and send it to you. It's wild, and Todd has like hazel eyes. It's like greenish. So I asked him which one he sees, and he sees like the blue eyed, but he's got like greenish hazel, which is light eyes as well.
mm,
And we were like staring at it, just dumbfounded at how like people with brown eyes can actually go into the sun and see the world outside looks darker because they have a darker filter. It's wild. So anyway, sometimes trauma can happen just from your biology.
yeah, and the thing is, it's not intentional, because, like I said at the top of the show, is that when I shared that story, trauma is a catalyst to help us remember who we are.
Absolutely. If we didn't have, that's the yoga perspective. If we didn't have suffering, we wouldn't have friction. So this world, in this sense, we're in a polarized world, like where we have a sun, we have a moon, where we have a right, we have a left, where we have a man, we have a woman, where it's all polarities, right? And so when you think about opposing forces, so a polarity is an opposing force, it creates a tug of war, which is an opening, right? And that creates friction. I always say, Hillis, that I use the metaphor with my students that we're like matches. If you look at a match that's by itself, it has everything on it. It needs to light
Mm,
itself. It can't though unless it's struck up against the matchbook. That's
exactly.
that's why to think that you're going to live on earth without having some sort of suffering is very ignorant of what your soul came here to do.
We
And
will at one point,
but
not in
right
this lifetime.
you got to embrace the suffering. And that's what I loved about the Bhagavad Gita, which comes from the Mahabharata, which Bhagavad Gita like changed my life. The Song of God is what the Bhagavad Gita stands for, the Song of God. And it's this part of the Mahabharata where the whole Mahabharata is about these two like cousin families that are fighting for land in this Indian kingdom. And they're
Mm-hmm.
going through all these ups and downs. And finally, it comes down to the point where they're going to have to go to war with each other. And Arjuna is the guy who's on the battlefield, and Krishna is the avatar of God, the Christ, Krishna the Christ, and he's also the one that plays the flute and dances. He's very jovial. So to see Krishna in a war scene is already kind of polarizing. And Arjuna, the whole Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is basically standing on the battlefield and he's having this like dark night of the soul, this like come to Jesus moment where he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to go to war against his cousins and people he's loved. And you would think what we've been conditioned to believe that the answer Krishna would give him is like, well, then don't love and peace, man. But no, that's not what Krishna says. Krishna goes, tough shit. Guess what? You're a warrior in this life. This
Yeah,
is what you have to do. You got to buckle up, Buttercup, because this is your journey in this life. And
yeah,
he goes through all the other things like accepting where you are. I think a lot of times for us, Hillis, and we can speak on this with trauma. I think sometimes there's denial where we don't want to accept the predicament we're in. Like we don't want to, and I think finally accepting that you have trauma makes such a big difference in your journey to healing. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
yeah, definitely. And if there's anyone that is watching now or later, you can definitely put your questions in the chat. Uh, oh, sure. So, Bernice, just go ahead and click on the link, hillispugh.com forward
I'll
slash
put it
all links.
in the comment section again. It looks like you're coming from Rumble, Bernice. So if you don't see it, let me know. But I've just put it back. It
Yeah,
says
if you take the comment down, you can see my link. Bernice, you can either see me this weekend while I'm doing a live event. You can check that out. Or if you want to work with me one on one, go to the link that's in the square on my square. Then you can set up your one on one consult with me, and we can see how I can be of service to you. But back to your question. So, what I find fascinating about all of this, right? Because it wasn't until I started my personal path where I began to, I was like, wait, this is just a giant school. It's like I got to go to school to be in school,
yeah,
meaning I got to go to. Like this just didn't compute. It didn't make sense. And so it's like I graduated from high school, was going to go to college, all this stuff. And I'm like, but I'm in school just to be in school, all this stuff, all this trauma. And so if we didn't have the contrast, if we didn't understand what the law of vibration was, if we didn't understand all of this, if we didn't understand what the sun was, how would we know what the moon is? If we didn't have all of this
exactly.
polarizing energy, we would know one without the other. So this is also true. If we wouldn't know trauma, if we wouldn't know fear, we wouldn't know love, joy, and happiness. We wouldn't know these things. We would just be readily accepted in that space. And so the space for us to really accept our trauma, you can be, some people can be broken happy. It's like, is that traumatic? Yeah, sure, why not? People can live in a space to where they begin to, what is it, Stockholm syndrome, whether you
Yeah,
begin to accept your captives because you're in this predicament where you have to make the best of what you have. And when you begin to accept what it is that's happening in your life, you begin to see from the perspective that I shared earlier, that everything begins and ends in love, because we know we move out of the space of blaming somebody, right? Because that's what trauma is. We automatically look outside ourselves, blame someone else, blame the situation, blame everything else. We don't look at ourselves. We blame, 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 blame. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Why did you do it? Why did you do this to me? And
right.
that's the thing. It's like, why did you do this to me? And then when you slowly begin to unravel and process, it's like, why did I let this happen? How did I let this happen? Now you're looking inside. You're not playing the victim anymore. Now you're playing the martyr. It's like, okay, well, let this happen to me. But why? And then when you move out of the martyr situation, it's like, oh, wait, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. And if I
Right.
wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be who I am. So I wouldn't have changed that. That was a rough journey, but damn, it was what I needed. And so there's these three stages, the blaming, the victim, the murder, and then the acceptance. And it's in that space of accepting you begin to see the bigger picture, that
Yeah.
we are a part of this fractal creator source God energy. And people, I know a lot are probably Christians, religious fanatics the wrong way when I say that, but just imagine you're this omnipotent being and want to experience different facets of yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
How would you do that?
Yeah. Exactly. And don't worry about making the religious fanatics mad. I do that all the time, Hillis. So don't even worry about that.
Well, and that's the thing and that's part of why I have my series being Omni. It's the path of really understanding oneness, really understanding who you are. And
Yeah.
Omni is the all. It's everything. It's the plant right here next to me. It's you sitting over there in Atlanta. It's the paintings that are on my wall. It's everything. And when you begin to have reverence of that space, you begin to see things from a different lens and different perspective,
Yeah.
because it's in that energetic resonance, this self proclaimed container. It's like, I have to be safe here. This is my safety spot. No one can touch me. No one can hurt me. Safe, 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 safe. But guess what, dear child? You're not always safe where you claim to be,
Yeah.
because there have been moments where I thought I was safe. There was one time I thought I was safe in my own home. And at the time, my ex-boyfriend, I tell you, had a temper worse than none. And if anyone knew me back in the late 90s, early 2000s, my temper, instant. It took me a while to work on that, but this person had a worse temper than I did. And that's like, one minute we were talking, next minute we were having an argument. Next thing I know, I'm in to have a bloody head, you know? The next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. I'm like, oh, what the hell just happened? And so when I say these things, I speak from experience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Yeah, so Benice, no problem. Are you on the west coast or east coast of Australia? Because I've worked with people in Australia before, so I've always worked out times to work with people in Australia. I love working with you guys with all the accents. I've been to Sydney once. Sydney was awesome.
I love
Um,
Australia. Yeah.
yeah.
I always tell I have a lot of Australians on this channel, and I work with a lot of Australians, my business partners in Australia, and I always say that Australians are very similar to Americans. There's
Oh
a
yeah.
similar like personality. One thing Michelle Obama said a long time ago that I actually agree with, is that Americans are scrappy. And I agree with that. So are Australians. So
Yeah.
yeah, Bernice, we have Zoom. The Lou, who we channel on Thursdays, calls it telepathic TV. That's what he calls Zoom.
Hmm.
And we have telepathic TV. So we
Yeah, no, I love it. And when it was so funny, the one time I went to Australia, it was, I guess you can call it a red eye, because it was from New York to LA,
yep,
had about maybe an hour layover, then from LA to Australia, where I slept like 14 hours,
yep,
and then got up, and it was like maybe 8, 9 a.m. So I forced myself, my partner and I, we were up, we forced ourselves to stay awake the whole
yep,
entire day, and went to the local zoo, if you could call it a zoo, and saw a Tasmanian devil, koala, kangaroos. It was fun. It was a fun challenge to stay up for the whole entire day.
yeah. Jet lag is no joke. Jet lag is rough. But Hillis, my teacher in India used to say that the reason why jet lag is so bad is because your physical body has moved, but your energetic body has not caught up yet.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like our ancestors collectively would travel slower. They would travel on horseback or in carriages or on ships. So it was a slower progression to new places. But uh
Yeah, I was laughing at that because I saw that pop up. I'm like, yeah, I hope not.
no, God no.
Uh,
No,
if
I
that's the case, I would be burning incense all the time
I lived in LA for a long time, and no, it's Hollywood. Listen, and performing
No,
arts, you know,
you don't want
the
smoke
arts
vision.
is a service to others' career, but it's been corrupted. So hopefully in the near future we'll have a performance art television that is with good people and not corrupt people. But you know, it
Yeah,
is
we're not going to get into that whole.
no.
I found more of. See, I need to stop with some of this because I found out more information in the past week. I'm like, what? And
Yeah, it's awful.
mind you, I've stopped for a long time. I didn't go digging, and it just happens that some of the stuff finds me, especially after I stopped. It's like I'm like, I didn't want that to find me, but how did it find me? You
You know,
know?
the substance they use that we can't say on YouTube, they're putting
Yes,
it in lollipops now. So if you see actors sucking lollipops, especially red ones, on TV,
I've
that's
heard that.
they're doing it in your face. Yeah.
I've
So,
heard that.
and you know, I'm the same way to kill us because I think sometimes people get so caught up in the conspiratorial world. But I think what we need to do is once we know what's going on in the world, we know what's going on. Now we got to work in like healing ourselves because we have to heal our own trauma so that we don't attract more of that into the future. If that makes
Exactly. Exactly. Hello, Eloise. And so, one thing I want to express too is part of my practice. Because, when I started doing this, back in 2013, 2014, and one of the things, I prescribed to then that I don't prescribe to now is the commercial term is heal or healer. And the purpose of that is because it implies we're broken. And I only use that term when it is appropriate in the physical sense. In the energetic sense, in the emotional sense, we don't need healing, we need nourishing. So when I speak with everyone, I don't say that you need to heal. No, there's nothing to heal because you're not broken. You just need the proper nourishment. You need to allow yourself to let go of what has kept you in this space and this resonance. And what I do as an omni resonance architect is work with people at a soul level to help them, guide them to access their divine blueprint, for them to connect with that space. Because once you have the soul, once you're connected in that space, what is the lacking is the space of integration. People, you don't integrate, and so I help people to integrate those fragments, those pieces that have been long forgotten, and tear everything down and create a solid foundation of remembrance. Because that's what we all want. We want to remember who we are. That's the bottom line. We want to really connect to our soul, to our energy, to our true essence. And that's what this is about. This is why we come here to this school. It's like, you know what? I've been through all this shit. I've done it all. I've seen it all. I'm ready for the next level. And when I have dreams and see past versions of myself, it's like I've been doing this in every iteration that I've been in. I can honestly say that I've been on planet Earth since the beginning, since
yeah.
its inception of its first civilization of Mu slash Lemuria, whatever you want to call it. And before that, I was on Sirius B. After that, I was on Arcturus. So I've been doing this work in every iteration, even when, and you can look up this gentleman here. What is his name? Phil the Good.
Yeah, we
He died. Yeah, he died in 1467. And the only reason I know that because I had a dream about him, and that was me. He was born a Leo. I have Leo in my chart, and he died on my birthday, June 15th. Now, how wild is that? If that's not confirmation of that, then there's other lives that I lived. I'm not going to go into on the channel right now, but I mean, there's all this stuff. I mean, I've been a high priestess, I've been a scribe, I've been an emperor, I've been a slave, I've been all these iterations. And in every iteration, there's been this.
oh,
Uh,
where'd you go? There you are. Where'd it
and as I was saying,
go? I
in
meant to pull
every
that up.
in every iteration of me, there's been this desire to heal. And with Phil the Good, the Duke of Burgundy, I mean, he had 900 commissions of texts. So he's like this very super spiritual Duke of Burgundy. So I mean, come on. I mean, yeah. And So yeah, it's all this stuff. So
You have a much stronger jawline now.
but I think he might have been taller though too. But oh, we have to talk about this offline. I think you'll find it interesting. Is in one of my most recent lives, I was Douglas Fairbanks.
Huh, interesting. Interesting. Do you know what's interesting too? I often think too, you think of like past lives, we also have our ancestral as well. That DNA also runs through us too. And that can cause some issues too, can it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and one example of that is, and I'm gonna just take a sip of water now to share this story.
Yeah, go right ahead. Absolutely. We have that ancestral DNA that's active.
Yeah, exactly. Because I had a client who had an irrational fear of trucks, pickup trucks, semi trucks, just had an irrational fear of trucks in general. And so we worked together, and I believe it was maybe her second or third session where we got to this fear. And I said, well, where is this? It's not in the current frame. It's not in this current design. Where is it? So I had to go a little bit further back and found out that this fear came from her mother
Yeah,
because her mother was about to get hit by a truck while she was pregnant with her. So that was a transference of emotion to her. So the transference of trauma is real. The
very real.
transference of this energy is real. But as I've done this work, ancestral energy doesn't impact us like some people think it does, which is why I do work at a soul level. Because to put it in this form of fashion, if anyone has ever seen uh, Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is my favorite cartoon on earth, I love that show. Um, and you can learn a lot just from watching that show. But I've in the space of understanding your past incarnations and the blueprint that they carry is all the same. And the only reason why ancestral energy impacts us is because of the lessons that are designed to be learned from these interactions, which is why people talk about ancestral trauma and how it goes back 7 generations and forward 7 generations. It's because of the lessons in that space. And seven is just the number that we associate with our cosmology, with the 7 chakras, 7 embodied chakras, the 7 auric fields, and the meridian system, and all these things. There's all this energy that is connected to the lessons, and that's why the ancestral trauma plays a role. That's the only reason it impacts you indirectly to have that experience. And then you have your own incarnations, your own traumas to deal with. But like I said at the top of the show, we're in fourth density collectively. It's time for us to really begin the path and to do the work, let it go. No more spiritual bypassing, understand the shadow, and put everything to rest.
Yeah, it's what's interesting, I mean, I this is something small, really small, not that big of a deal.
No, nothing is ever small.
Well, I have a really weird-ish thing about my neck. Like, people
Hmm.
always notice how I cut my t-shirts, and I don't like anything touching my neck. Like, turtlenecks are really tight necklaces, or even when I go get my hair cut, like, I usually sit with my hand around the collar because I can't handle it, and it took me a really long time to figure out why am I so insecure about my neck?
Mm.
And I think it's because I've had ancestors who were executed, or maybe I was executed in a past life, and that trauma is still there.
Well, no, you know what just came to me because I have a similar issue. I don't like it when people put their arms around my neck
Yeah.
because for you it was you were strangled. For you, that's what it was. You were strangled in the past life. For me, it was because I drowned, which is why still really don't. I know how to swim a tiny bit, but not like a lot. I
Yeah.
don't like to get in deep water because of my irrational past life fear of drowning. And this was back in Atlantis, so I still haven't gotten over that. um, But yeah, you definitely you were strangled. This is why it was in the past life this occurred.
I can't, like, I will constantly grab, and I have people when I first got on YouTube are like, "Oh, you cut your shirts, you cut all your shirts." I'm like, "Bitch, I can't handle anything around my neck." That's why um, so yeah, it's that, and it's just a minor thing, right? Like it's not like I think about it every single day. So, but Hillis, I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I know I have a meeting at 12:30. So what can we let's talk about like what people what can they expect when they come to see you for the first time? Can you give people a breakdown of like how your process works?
Sure, definitely. So what my process is, and you guys can actually go to my website. I talk about it on my website too, is about the energy work. And after we have the initial consultation, now mind you, I say 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes I could be about a half hour long because I do get intuitive hits as I go through this process, depending on how much information you provide. And sometimes it's not even about how much information you provide, it's also about how open you are and receptive you are to the energy and how much you allow me to see in that moment. And after we move from the initial consultation, we go over the proper protocol. If we're going to do, a set number of sessions, or if we're going to do the path of the attunement, which is a combination of you learning to do what I do, as well as the sessions. And each session is a guided meditation, to put it loosely. It's a soul transmission to where I do call in energy via light language, and most of the light language is whispered, so it's not to disrupt the flow of energy that is coming in during your nourishing time with me. And after we do the session is approximately 1 hour long. We go through the setting up, the clearing, and then we go through the grounding and then integration at the end. And this process can be repeated 5 or more times, only because we have to get into the field, because I work with your physical space, I work with the auric field, I work with your macabre, I work with you at a soul level, I work with you in your complete totality. And this is what makes me different from most other people. Because since I have the experience of working with shamans and have the experience of my own personal journeys, I understand what occurs at every single aspect of self. And that is why I love to do what I do, to see the transformation of everyone that I work with. It just brings me so much joy to work with everyone from all age ranges. I sometimes even worked with the children, well, not children, but adolescents, but I do have to have consent from parents to do that. But I've worked with, younger and as old as like 70 years old. And so there's nothing that I haven't done in the work that I do.
And just to reiterate, because we have such an international audience here, and of course, the United States is a huge country, you can do everything on Zoom, can't you?
I can do everything on Zoom, but I prefer phone. And the
Okay.
reason why is because Zoom is a distraction. I've discovered this
Okay.
early in my work, because Zoom is, and not saying that it's a distraction for bad reason. It just kind of hinders and gets in the way of the intention and the focus. It's
Okay.
like, I'm, in the beginning, people were like, okay, I'm focusing on you. It's like, no, don't focus on me. I just need you to be in your space. So this is why, that's why I like WhatsApp. I do, if you're international, I've worked with people on WhatsApp. I worked with people local in the States, just as a regular phone call. Is it and once you guys get to know me, I like things simple and easy. I don't need to make things more difficult than what it needs to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yes, sometimes people try to overthink spirituality, and it's actually should be as simple as possible in the process. So, but just to reiterate for our people, you don't have to be local to hit list. You can be anywhere in the world, and
Oh
he will.
yeah.
Now, tell us about this event that you have coming up.
So the event that I have is on the Lionsgate. Who knew? I didn't plan it that way, but it's a 2 hour event to where I will explain what trauma is, how it affects the body, for the first hour. Then the second hour, we'll do a group clearing and nourishing session for you to really connect to you, to connect to your soul. And this is only the beginning. Not saying that in this 1 hour, we're going to do a wham bam and just be done with everything. This is for you to get a taste of what it feels like to begin to have clarity and resolution from past traumas.
And this can be online as well. So if people purchase to join you on the 8th, they can do it from their home. They don't have to be in Florida.
Right, they can do it from their home. And now this one will be done via StreamYard.
Okay.
So once you make the purchase, you will receive a link, but then I will send out an email a day before just to make sure everyone that has purchased does have the link.
And so this is kind of like a group healing.
Yes, it is.
All right, I'm going to put this in the link. So I would imagine, I mean, people are different, right? Everybody has different responses, but if you're new to something like this, I would imagine doing something like a group healing would be a good like entry point, because you kind of get to experience it with other people.
Yeah. And what I found myself when I've done these, whether it's virtually or in person, is that there's always a common thread among those who attend. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always a common theme. I mean, and so the people that come, it's no coincidence. It's just in that space and spirit like, hey, well, let's make it easy for you. Let's group all like people together just for you.
Right. I mean, there's no such thing as mistakes, right? So,
No.
you
Mm-mm.
know, and so you guys, anything else, Hillis? Because I want to have, of course, we can do this again next week too. We can. When is the 8th? Is the 8th this
Yes, it's this Saturday. It's this Saturday.
this Saturday? So,
Yeah. Oh, but you know what we could, if we're going to do this next week, you know what we could talk about next week?
what's that?
The return of Sirius.
Oh, that might be fun. Dun dun
Yeah.
dun. Yeah. Do you know what, Hillis?
But I will put this disclaimer in there. So if we do one next week and talk about the return of Sirius, you will learn why we have the dog days of summer.
Yeah, I at this point, because I'm an elder millennial, zennial, I'm like a combination. We talked about this, and I saw like a meme the other day or like a little, what is it, a GIF of this guy like making himself tea and sipping tea while like explosions were going on outside, and it was like what it's like to be a millennial. Like if all the planets returned tomorrow, I don't know if millennials would even care. I think we've been so traumatized our whole life that we're just like, okay.
I mean, yeah, the fact that we have we have all these collective traumas, and the most recent is the 9/11. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a collective trauma in itself. I mean, I can imagine. And actually, you know what's interesting too? I was watching. This is at the time I was kind of like into MTV, and I was watching the Real World, and that was the only shows I really watched. And it was this girl's birthday was on 9/11. So just imagine,
I know if you
being on TV,
I,
share and having that happen on your birthday. I mean,
I
that's like
know that.
insane. And then forever, your birthday is that day.
Yep. Yep. I know a few people who have had that happen. I'll tell you guys a really funny story. We'll end on that because humor is, so my mama, growing up, my parents weren't super strict about what we watched. Like they were pretty low key about like we could do our homework and watch TV as long as our grades were good. But my mama would not let us watch MTV when we were little. We couldn't watch Beavis and Butthead, and we couldn't watch The Real World. And like the first season with like Puck, you know? And so my mama would pour herself
That was season 3. I watched
or
that
whatever.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mama would go into her master bedroom with her glass of wine and a snack, and she'd lock the door and watch it. And my sister and I'd be sitting outside the door like
Oh, I love it. Yeah, he
oh,
was a rowdy one. He was a rotten, loudmouth, disrespectful. Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, I remember the advertisements, but my mom would not let my sister and me watch because it dealt with, it dealt with really adult topics, and we
Oh
were
yeah. No, the season 3, yeah, season 3 was heavy.
That's actually not true, Charles. That I used to think that too, but that is so you have to remember that 99%, I'm gonna say this real loud and clear, 99% of the truthers are controlled opposition. They're paid by the Illuminati. So yeah, yeah. Oh, I can't control that. That's YouTube. I can't control that at all. YouTube does that. So trust me, YouTube, yeah. So I'm sorry about that if you guys are getting slammed with commercials. Is that in our control, Hillis?
I have no control.
That is, and I'm on StreamYard right now. Like we're doing everything. We're not even on you. Like we're streaming to YouTube, but we're on a different platform streaming it. So, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Rumble probably puts commercials up too. Yeah. So,
Well,
but
you're
anyway,
popular. That's why.
they keep put. Well, I don't make the money off of those AdSense. They do. So anyway, and Charles, that's totally cool. We're going to actually on Friday. Tamara and I are. One of my Oh, with Shaq? No, I know. I mean, no, I'm 5'5", honey. I wish I had some of Shaq's height, but I'm 5'5" and like 115 pounds, so I'm not as big as that. But so on Friday, Tamara is coming back on at like 6 o'clock in the morning because she's in Australia, and we're going to talk about the controlled opposition a little bit more that's going on in like the truther community and what it means to like give your consent. And a lot of these truthers that people are listening to are not only paid by the cabal, but they suck the lollipops that we were talking about earlier. And so they're playing you guys again. So you have to, if you're in the truther world, you're going to have to really self-reflect. Have you been rocked back to sleep again by this controlled opposition?
Yeah.
Tomorrow and I are going to talk about it with the United States Constitution and stuff like that. So
it's all about discernment. Trust in here.
Yeah. Yep. And you know, Hillis and I can promise you, I've known Hillis for a while now. We aren't making much money off of this, are we, Hillis? Like doing our show, like we're not at all. And some of these controlled opposition people are buying 2 or 3 houses, so they're being paid. But the American controlled opposition will be brought up on treason charges. So at some point, they will be brought up on treason charges. So anyway, you guys, anything else, Hillis? I don't want to end on a sour.
No, I just want to say thank you, Bryce. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today, for watching. We've been on for 1 hour and 11 minutes. Woohoo! Magic number.
I know, right? Just like Fauci, 111.
And just remember that everything begins and ends in love.
Yes, absolutely, guys. And all of Hillis's links are in the chat and in the description box below. Please make sure to reserve your spot with him for this upcoming 8th, the Saturday to start your healing journey. And I can't wait. Yeah, next week, let's gossip about Sirius. Let's tell
us. Because I'm excited because I have to start reading the next book in my collection, which is the Dogon Symbols.
Ooh, this is fascinating, guys. So anyway, I can't wait to hear how it goes this weekend. So
yeah.
All right, you guys, we'll see you guys. I will not be here tomorrow, but I've got a show dropping at 2:00 this afternoon with Kathy O'Brien. So you've gotten 3 shows from me today, 3 incredible guests today, lots of shows to watch. And then tomorrow I've got a members only dropping, but no public shows tomorrow, but that's okay. You got 3 today. And then Thursday, Catherine will be on the channel again to talk about self-sabotage, the secret mind-controlled weapon. And Thursday, tomorrow, we'll be back on live again. And then next week, speaking of, you guys, yesterday we've been really digging into Fritz Springmeier's work from the 90s over the 13 bloodline families. And so we've been taking 3 weeks to go through the Priory of Sion, the Merovingians, and the Mormons. And so that continues next week. On Monday, I've got some stuff dropping again from Fritz Springmeier regarding the Merovingians and the Mormons. And then next Friday, a week from this Friday, Lorraine from the Sacred Secret Society is going to come on, and she's going to talk some shit with us about about these families and what they've done. She is our favorite ex-Mormon. So if you guys are interested in what's going on with the LDS Church and the corruption, that the Mormons need a lot of healing, Hillis.
Look, call me. Look, honestly, I want to work with some of these Hollywood celebrities because I know what they've gone through, and I am here. Because I've read about some of the stuff, I watched some of the stuff, and look, I am here to help you get your life back on track. I mean, I understand how deep it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lorraine, if you guys have not checked out her channel, it's the Sacred Secret Society. And holy shit, Hillis, the mind control and the abuse that these Mormons go through is just unbelievable.
I get it. I've actually had a client not too long ago who was in MK Ultra, and I worked with her for a while. So
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So be looking out for that, guys. And as always, thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you over on Rumble too. I know sometimes the Rumble comments don't pop up, but I appreciate you guys being here and all of for both Rumble and YouTube. We have all of Hillis's links down below. And of course, if you can't find his links or you're having problems, you can always reach out to me or reach out to Hillis and we can get you guys sorted. So, all right, until next time, bye everybody.
Bye.